All right, so this is presentation one over Unit 8 over India and South Asia in general. All right, so first off, interesting facts. You don't necessarily have to know these or write these down. It's just interesting things about India. So, like being the largest democracy on earth as far as the biggest population in a democratic country. Film industry is really big there. Bollywood, you may have heard of before. They produce a lot more movies than we do, and pretty much anybody else every year. They're not necessarily good, but they make a lot of them. All right, so real quick, countries of South Asia. You got Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, India, and Bangladesh. These are the countries that will be on the map quiz for South Asia. And then, of course, Sri Lanka down here as well. Cities, you won't really need to know these on the quiz specifically, but these are your major cities. So ones you probably heard of before, like New Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, stuff like that. Mountains, you will need to know about the Himalayas, Mount Everest in general, and Hindu Kush and Khyber Pass. So India's never really been invaded before, like fully taken over by invading army. It's mainly the mountains that have protected it, because the mountains pretty much cover this entire region. So the only place you have to protect is the Khyber Pass, the only flat area you can get through. Then you have the Thar Desert and Deccan Plateau. So the rain shadow creates this arid region here in the middle, behind the Ghats on the west side. And then your main plain is the Indo-Gangetic Plain. That's where most people are going to live, besides the coast. Along the Ganges River, that's where you can farm quite a bit and produce a lot of food. Main water areas, the main ones you need to know is the Indus River and the Ganges River. We'll talk about those later. And then you need to know why India is called a subcontinent. So India broke off from Africa a long time ago and then floated across the Indian Ocean and then ran into Asia. So it's not originally part of that land mass, and that's what created the Himalaya Mountains, is that collision. It's still happening, so the Himalayas are still growing from this collision. So it's called a subcontinent because originally it was separated from Asia. So this basically just shows what I was just talking about. And then the Himalayas, so biggest mountain range in the world, highest one. And the Himalaya means snow home. And of course, you got Mount Everest. There's the tallest peak in the world at 29,000 feet. And then the Hindu Kush are to the west of the Himalayas, and they're still really tall mountains. The highest peak in the world is there, K2. So still really steep mountains there as well. And then you have your smaller mountain ranges. So the Ghats, for example, are much smaller mountains that are on each side of the coast of India. And then the Indo-Gangetic Plain I mentioned already, of course, for farming. Your river systems, Indus and Ganges. Ganges is where most people live today. Indus is where early civilizations first started in India. And then, of course, knowing about the alluvial soil. So these rivers would flood, of course, every year and provide the soil for people to farm on that's high in nutrients. Indus River is about 1,900 miles long. It's cleaner than the Ganges. The Ganges River system there is huge. A lot of water flowing there. It causes a lot of flooding, though, in Bangladesh. We'll talk about a little bit. And the Brahmaputra is about 1,800 miles long. And then Sri Lanka, your island groups got Sri Lanka over here is a large island. The Maldives is a bunch of tiny islands. About 1,200 islands make up this archipelago as well. And then looking at climate issues. So basically climate, they're humid subtropical. So it's just like North Texas when it comes to that. So hot, humid summers. Winters generally mild. It can get cold, but it's generally mild. And then you need to know what monsoons are. So monsoons are seasonal winds. They're not storms. And during the winter, they bring dry air from the Himalayas, so it doesn't really rain during this time of year. And then when you get into the summer months, during that time, you get warm, moist air from the south, from the Indian Ocean. This brings rain with it. So the summer monsoonal winds will bring strong storms and flooding along with them. So here you can see the winter monsoon coming from the north down south, and then the summer monsoon going up across the ocean, bringing moisture, which is very similar to here. In the winter, generally, we have cold air coming from Canada, coming across as drier, and then the summer or spring and summer, we get wind from the Gulf of Mexico, bringing moisture with it. All right, then cyclones are big storms they get there. It's the same thing as a hurricane. So a hurricane occurs in the Atlantic Ocean. And then if this storm was in the Pacific Ocean, it'd be called a typhoon. And when it's in the Indian Ocean, it's called a cyclone. So it's the exact same thing. But these hit Bangladesh quite a bit, bringing very strong storm surges, which is high waves, and flood the area because Bangladesh is mainly below sea level. So that's a big issue they deal with there. Then the Ganges River, we'll talk about this in pretty much every set of notes in India, but it's important for drinking and farming and stuff like that, but they also put in dead animals in there, ashes of dead people, human waste. things like that. But they also worship it as a goddess. They believe a goddess, Mata Ganga, controls the river and she's over it. And so it's a sacred river to them. So they bathe in it and drink from it, believing that Mata Ganga will protect them. And will cleanse the water as they consume it. And so they don't actually try to clean the water really because they believe that Mata Ganga will control it. And so therefore, why spend millions of dollars cleaning it? So there's some images there of the river. And then Bangladesh, as I mentioned, it's below sea level. You see a lot of flooding due to cyclones that hit the region. They don't have very much infrastructure. It's a poor country, so they can't build the dams necessary to really protect the country. They do have some dams and levees and stuff, but it's not enough to really help out. So you get flooding from the Brahmaputra. They're also near the Ring of Fire, and so you get a lot of earthquakes and tsunamis in the region. Earthquakes in India mainly occur along the Himalaya mountains, where it's still pushing in to Asia. And then, if I had this in presentation mode, you'd see the ripples coming out from this. But in 2004, there was a giant earthquake in the Indian Ocean. It's about a 9.5 on the Richter scale. Remember, that only goes up to 10. And this created a huge tsunami, killed about 250,000 people back in 2004. It did hit India and Sri Lanka, but most of the deaths were in this region over here, near Thailand and Sumatra. And this is just some images from the tsunami, and those are bodies that were left over from that. So that's basically the physical geography of India. And the next one, we'll look at the history of India.